So today we have in the past looked into areas of compassion where we worked on relaxing our bodies, our minds, our hearts, opening our hearts. And today we are going into a very special step, which is to put in place a magic step, which is the clarification of intent. Now, just to give a tiny little background into the founding of the Applied Compassion Academy. So it was a gentleman named James Doty who founded this academy. And early on, he had, if you guys remember back to the first session, I had you write down some wishes. So when Jim was 13, and he was very new to all of this, his wish list had, he was very poor, came from a very dysfunctional family. So this was his wish list. And using the techniques we're going to talk about today, he actually got all of these things. You see my little asterisk there. He had $87 million. But he had gotten all these things and he was very, very unhappy. Forced into bankruptcy, had lost touch with his children. He had forgotten the heart step, that last step where we in the last step, we use the people for loving kindness, but we also need to use the heart to help us. I like the term deciding versus sliding. Because a lot of times we work really hard and we'll end up with something, but wasn't really what we wanted, which is why you have to sort of look at your wish list with that lens in mind. So Jim decided not to be focusing on the money part, but to use his position, his wealth, his neurosurgeon, and to reach out to friends who could help him to do something a little more meaningful. So Dalai Lama was one of the founders of this Applied Compassion Academy and CCARE, which is part of the medical school. But enough about him. How do we do this? So again, we have people who are our heart touchstones, our heart anchors. But when we look at the wishes, it's easy to make the wish list. And we did do that in our first week, where we looked at something that we wished was different, something that wasn't quite right. And then again, this one sounds, it sometimes sounds too simplistic, but there's actually a lot of science behind it, which I'll get to, which is the power of visualization. So we've made the wish. We have said, hey, this area of my life I wish was different. And when we wish it was different, we actually have an idea of how it could be. And this visualization is something that we shouldn't just skip over. So how to use it? Specifically, there's this book out about 2 decades old called The Secret, where it's basically, you wish for something, and if you keep wishing for it, it comes true, which they're saying you should rely on the universe's energy, which, is nice in thought, but actually there is a thing called the confirmation bias. For example, if you have decided that you might get a dog, all of a sudden you will see a lot of dogs. Or if you decide, hey, I'm interested in buying a Tesla, and you might start to see Teslas. This is called the confirmation bias. And what it actually does is it reaches into our brain. And a lot of people have heard the statistic that we only use, a certain small percentage of our brain. But in fact, we can access a lot more of the creativity and the power within our brain by doing visualization, by saying, hey, these are things I want. And by coming back to them, it's not a matter of wishing, it is a matter of spending time visualizing. And what does that look like? So what is going on here neurologically, you guys probably know the phrase neuroplasticity, where we learn new things, we try new things to keep the brain growing and in good shape. But the other term that's important is called neurogenesis, and that is the ability to create new neurons based on things that we want to be able to do. And the visualization of things, of areas of our life we care about, triggers the neurogenesis. So this is the actual secret: neurogenesis plus neuroplasticity. And how do we do it? So this is an exercise that we're going to spend a little bit more time on next week. For right now, we're not actually going to do we're going to do it to some degree, but we're going to do it with pen and paper as opposed to actually doing it as a meditative exercise. So What I'm hoping is that you might have your list of the things that you wish for in handy someplace. If not, then you can just wish for something that you wish would come true. Now, what's important about this particular technique is we went through a lot of these in the previous weeks, but what we're going to do right now is just a little physical exercise that shows how they come together. So picking one thing that was on your wish list and with your right hand closed, look at why you picked that thing. What are the things? What is the suffering? What are the things that are not right? So, just to overshare, one of the things on my wish list is that I did need to lose the COVID weight that I had because I was worried about my health. I saw that it made me embarrassed. I saw that, perhaps anyhow, lots of things that I admitted were wrong. And then step 2, you close the left hand, you can let the right hand relax. And in step 2, if you've got your pen and paper, take yourself to a place where this wish has been achieved, the success. And if you've got a pen and paper, write 3 things that are different, 3 specific things. It can be, monetary, health-wise, emotional, relational, but go to that perfect place and write down those things. Now, what's important about writing down the specific things that have changed is this step 3. I frequently call this the magic step that just opened up a big aha moment in my mind. A lot of times we get stuck by the enormity of what needs to be changed, but in any change situation, there's usually a single skillful action that is actually your part to play. And sometimes the skillful action is just writing something down to ponder. Sometimes we get better at this each time we practice it, in seeing the sadness of what was, of what is, the potential of what could be. And because we're visualizing it, we're digging into the attic of all these possibilities that maybe we haven't considered, haven't thought about. And sometimes magic connections are made within all those jumbled resources in our heads. So that is step 3, the single skillful action that is yours. And then step 4 is spending a little bit of time in meditation, which we're not going to do today, where you see how your single skillful action is met by actions of others, by actions around us, by resources maybe we didn't think about. So that was our lesson for today. And again, I'm so sorry that my area is a little bit noisy today, but if it's available, I am still going to lead us through just a tiny little bit this transformation technique. Next week, we will do it from a quieter place with a little bit more integration from all the other weeks that we've had. But if you're ready to try this now for real with the items that you wrote with your pen and pencil, we are going to just spend one breath relaxing our body. One breath visiting our mind, maybe taking a breath in and out with our mantra. And then one breath summoning the people who have loved us. And on our exhale, wishing them happiness, wishing them peace, wishing them contentment, satisfaction. And then having set the table, let's look at an area where we notice suffering, an area where we want to practice compassion, which is to say action. So noticing the suffering. And then having closed the right hand, we'll now open it and close the left hand and visualize the perfect place, the perfect situation, the perfect outcome to that suffering. Visualizing with each breath in and out, noticing something that has changed. And now, letting both hands be open, letting yourself be open to any single skillful action that maybe could help from point A to point B. And don't beat yourself up if one isn't apparent, or if everything that comes to your mind, maybe you've tried or you think is undoable. It's okay. It's okay. This is an exercise. We don't necessarily get everything we want on our first attempt, but the idea that you might have, one single skillful thing that could maybe get the ball rolling. It has power. You have power. And then placing both hands on heart center. That's where we integrate the noticing, the visualization, our part, and being open to what else might be coming to play. So anyhow, that was today's lesson. If you can join for next week, we are going to do a integration where we actually look to all the concepts, maybe talk about them a little bit, and then do a longer version of this, maybe with one or two areas or something. So that is our class. With that, I release you back to your day, and thank you for taking this time for compassion.